Anyone who drives a vehicle will have noticed the rise in fuel costs, and it doesn't seem likely that oil costs are going to go down anytime soon, and even if they do, I don't think fuel is going to get an awful lot cheaper. Fuel duty has been on a freeze here in the UK for a long time. They actually dropped it back very slightly, but I can see it'll go back up again at some point. So what do we do about it? We could throw away all our gas guzzling cars, or petrol guzzling cars rather, and we could all drive around in tiny little economical cars like this. But actually there are a number of things you can do that will save you money without you having to change your vehicle at all. Now, one option is to just get out and walk. Not always practical. I've only got a few miles to do today and I'm already out of breath. But I could use public transport, but there isn't any. Even the main bus service to Aberystwyth doesn't run on a Sunday, so that's no good either. So while I think a lot of people would like people to ditch cars and find other ways to move, I fear, especially in rural parts like this, there really isn't any alternative but to use the car. But nonetheless, I'm going to try and share some driving tips while out in my little 2CV here to hopefully help you save a bit of money. It'll also improve your driving actually, and might make the whole driving experience a lot more relaxing. So here we go. Now, economical driving doesn't mean driving as slowly as possible, but it does mean you need to try and conserve your momentum. Ignore the slightly horrible noises this engine's making. It's not in the best of health. You're generally trying not to have your foot flat to the floor, which can be tricky in a Citroen 2CV, especially going up a hill, but it's more economical if I let that speed bleed away. Sure, cars have got the power to keep going uphill at the same pace as on the flat, but if you let them slow down, it's that much more economical because you're burning that much less fuel to get up the hill. It does make a surprising difference. This is something I learned especially driving EVs, electric cars, where range is so critical. So I'm just letting the speed bleed away. I am going to go to a lower gear, but I'm still only on part throttle. We're doing 40 miles an hour. It's not horrendously slow. It's not dangerously slow, but I'm using much less petrol. But yeah, it's all about conserving momentum. If you're having to accelerate, whether it's out of a bend, away from a standstill, it's all bad news. So try and keep the car moving. This is something I was taught when learning to drive. You know, if you're approaching a give way, be prepared to continue if the coast is clear. Don't come to a stop, have a look and then go again. And yeah, it's so much about that conservation of momentum. And what I learned with EVs, to be honest, I'd already learned a bit with 2CVs, because 2CVs haven't got the power to accelerate hard out of bends. So the way to drive a 2CV quickly is to not slow down, and that applies to conservation of fuel use as well. The less you're accelerating, the more economical your driving will be, which is why we get much better economy figures on a run. There we go. I've had to downshift it first, but we didn't actually come to a stop. That's a little bit of fuel saved there. Now we're accelerating gently. I'm changing gear a little earlier than I would normally. Every little bit will help eke out a little more fuel consumption, which in these rather worrying times is no bad thing. And as I mentioned, these are skills I've honed driving electric cars. So when the switch does come, I will feel better prepared, because in an electric car you haven't got the engine to try and keep in balance. See, I'm now, this engine is now labouring. I'm going to have to downshift. You don't get that with an EV. It's just seamless torque. So similarly, you don't rev an electric car for power and enjoyment in the same way. It's a very different feeling. But it's amazing how just a slight change of attitude, just relaxing a bit, bringing your average speed down, will help. On a long journey especially, if you cruise down a motorway at 60, you'll save considerable fuel over doing 70 or even slightly more the naughty speeds. Sure, you could do 50 miles an hour on a motorway and that would save even more fuel, but then you're really starting to get in the way of the trucks. The trucks are limited to 56, so they're going to be having to go around you, and I like to try and make life as easy as possible for professional truckers. I would rather just go a little bit quicker and stay out of their way. But the other aspect, which is difficult to demonstrate around here because there is so little traffic, if you are in stop-start traffic, open up the gap. Someone jumps in front of you, so be it. Just let them get on with it. What you want to do is avoid stopping, especially on a motorway. Coming to a dead stop on a motorway actually quite dangerous, and that's when you get a lot of fender benders, people not paying attention in a queue. So you just want to try and keep moving. The trucks will often do this because they know they don't want to stop, because it's more wear on the clutch, more effort changing all the way back up the gears again. So they will try and crawl and keep a constant speed for a traffic queue, and that's a very good thing to aim for yourself. Avoid harsh braking as well. I've just come easing down to a slower speed to take this junction, and yeah, no problem. If you're having to heavy brake for roundabouts, traffic lights, whatever, then that suggests you had a bit too much momentum for that situation anyway. So in other words, you've burnt fuel somewhere, and but you didn't really need to burn. So yeah, just ease it down. Driving actually becomes more relaxing. You can still have fun. I'm going down the road at the moment. It's going to get quite tight and twisty. I will still have fun, but you don't have to be pinging it off the rev limiter in order to have fun. I mean, a 2CV is almost the ultimate car to drive economically, because I can take racing lines without having to cut across the middle of the road, and that all helps. Again, look at the corner, try and plan how you're going to make it as smooth as possible. You don't want to be hitting the brake mid-bend, you don't want to be making rapid adjustments. The smoother you can keep your driving, the more economical it will be. One thing I will say though, never coast, never do this. I'm into neutral. In neutral I can roll a bit more. I'm actually going uphill, so it's not working very well, but you're not securely in control of the vehicle. So yes, you might save a little bit of fuel by knocking it into neutral, but you've got less control of the vehicle, so I would not advocate it as a good idea. Well, I hope you found that useful. It's not going to save the world, it's not going to change anything dramatically, but if all of us just drove a little more economically, I think it would actually substantially reduce the amount of fuel we're all using here in the UK. So through changes in behaviour and just a slight change in driving style, you can actually save money. So I hope that's useful. Obviously, you know, it's difficult times for all of us. We see that. We see the shop orders are down. Some of the advertising revenue seems to have taken a bit of a hit lately, because absolutely everyone is feeling the pinch at the moment. But yeah, we will all get through this, and I'm sure there are more positive days ahead. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. Farewell.